Yes, and this time, the evidence is even more concerning. What unfolded at Gamebridge Fieldhouse on Saturday night was far more than a simple loss or an off-shooting performance. It was a complete organizational breakdown that resulted in a 100-84 blowout against the Portland Fire, a franchise that did not even exist in the WNBA before 2026. Every layer of the failure was visible: the offensive struggles, the defensive collapses in the paint, questionable rotation decisions, and the ongoing concerns surrounding injury transparency. The Fever now sit at 4-4, and the questions raised by this defeat are not the type that disappear with time. As always, any accountability discussion must begin with Caitlin Clark. In 21 minutes and 44 seconds of action, Clark scored just 6 points while shooting 1-4-7 from field, a mere 14.3%, and missed both of her three-point attempts. She finished with -8 rating and fouled out of the game. More concerning is the larger trend. Across her last 2 games, Clark has made only 4 of 19 field goal attempts, shooting just 21%, while her three-point shooting has completely disappeared after a stretch in which she shot 44% over 4 games only 2 weeks earlier. This is no longer a one-game anomaly. It is a documented downward trend. The timing naturally raises questions about her physical condition. Clark herself recently acknowledged that her back is something that gets out of line pretty quickly, a description that sounds more like an ongoing issue than a fully resolved injury. The late scratch before the first Portland matchup, which led to a formal WNBA warning regarding injury reporting compliance, was officially attributed to back stiffness. Since then, Clark's minutes have been noticeably reduced, creating a pattern that cannot be ignored. Given the sequence of events, it is reasonable to wonder whether the coaching staff is managing her workload because of physical concerns that have not been fully communicated publicly. What becomes much harder to justify, however, is the specific rotation management that defined the game's most critical stretches and ultimately helped turn a competitive contest into a lopsided defeat.
Caitlin Clark was benched in the first quarter of this game. And after that, she started getting in foul trouble, and she was benched throughout the majority of this game. I don't have the energy to even make a video right now. I'm just so mad, guys. Final score 84-100. I am so fucking mad right now.
One of the most questionable decisions of the night came in the first quarter when Stephanie White removed Caitlin Clark from the game. Pulling a player who is already struggling to find her shooting rhythm, especially during the early stages when the competitive tone of the game is being established, carries significant consequences. Players working through shooting slumps often need sustained minutes, continuous possessions, and repeated game speed reads to rebuild confidence and regain their offensive flow. Every touch, every defensive coverage, and every offensive decision contributes to restoring that rhythm. By taking Clark out of that sequence and placing her on the bench, the Fever disrupted the very continuity that could have helped her settle into the game. When she eventually returned, she was forced to re-enter against a defense that had already adjusted and become comfortable with its coverage schemes. The result was a frustrating night that ended with Clark fouling out after committing 5 personal fouls, removing her completely from the game's most critical moments. In a contest, the Fever ultimately lost by 16 points. Their primary offensive engine, the player who creates spacing, generates opportunities for teammates, and dictates the pace of the offense, was unavailable during the decisive stretch. For a team whose identity is built around Clark's playmaking and gravity, that absence proved impossible to overcome.
Saying different things about Caitlin Clark. How can you be in rhythm when the referees call every foul for you just touching a damn basketball? The lineups has been just so horrendous. And I never thought I'd be saying this, but I wish we had Christy Sides, bro. At this point, it is brutal to watch. The Indiana Fever is currently in the final seconds of this basketball game. It is so bad tonight that Stephanie White is actually trending on. She's trending on.
The reaction from the fan base following Saturday's loss may be one of the most revealing aspects of the entire situation. Fans provide a unique form of organizational feedback, and successful franchises pay close attention when that feedback begins to shift dramatically. Indiana Fever supporters have endured years of rebuilding, remained patient through difficult seasons, and consistently demonstrated their commitment through record-breaking attendance and ticket sales. Yet after this latest performance, a growing number of fans are expressing something that would have seemed unthinkable not long ago: nostalgia for the previous coaching staff. When a fan base begins viewing a former regime, one that was heavily criticized and ultimately replaced, as preferable to the current one, it signals a serious erosion of confidence in the direction of the team. At that point, explanations, press conference talking points, and promises of improvement carry limited value. The only meaningful response is better performance on the court. Unfortunately for the Fever, Saturday's 16-point defeat represented movement in the opposite direction. And while the offensive struggles drew much of the attention, the team's defensive issues, particularly its inability to protect the interior, deserve an equally thorough examination.
The Portland Fire has made 52 points in the paint. 52 points in the paint. They're literally picking the Indiana Fever apart. They have no bigs. The entire front office needs to be fired today. Amber Cox.
The defensive breakdown was just as alarming as the offensive struggles. Portland finished the game with 52 points in the paint, an extraordinary number against an Indiana Fever team built around the interior presence of Aaliyah Boston. As the team's primary rim protector and defensive anchor, Boston is the centerpiece of Fever's paint defense. Yet she ended the night with minus 14 plus minus rating, the worst on the entire roster. While that statistic will inevitably draw attention to Boston, it is important to understand a broader context. Defensive outcomes are rarely the result of one player alone. Players operate within systems, and those systems are designed, implemented, and adjusted by the coaching staff. When an opponent repeatedly attacks the paint with success and scores 52 points in that area, it raises serious questions about the defensive structure, rotations, and in-game adjustments being employed. In a game, the Fever lost by 16 points. Allowing that level of interior dominance cannot be viewed solely as an individual player failure. It reflects a larger systemic issue, one rooted in defensive schemes that fail to contain Portland's offensive actions and ultimately place the team in an unsustainable position throughout the night.
Lexi Hall was horrendous tonight. And I hate to say that for Lexi, man. Lexi was awful from the field, awful from three. And once again, the Indiana Fever has no-name players getting... Who the fuck is Megan Gustafsson? She had 22 points. She couldn't miss. Megan couldn't miss. 88 from the field. One-on-one. She shot 100%, bro. She missed one free throw. Megan did. I don't even know who Megan is.
Megan Gustafsson finished the game with 22 points while shooting an astonishing 88% from the field, a level of efficiency that immediately demands closer examination. Gustafsson is a talented and productive professional player who has earned respect throughout her career, but even quality players are not expected to shoot at that rate against a well-organized WNBA defense. The film reveals a series of defensive breakdowns that allowed her to operate far too comfortably throughout the game. Indiana consistently failed to recognize and disrupt her preferred catch locations, struggled to contest her most effective finishing angles, and showed little evidence of the in-game adjustments that such an efficient performance should have triggered. When a player is converting nearly every opportunity, the responsibility extends beyond individual matchups and points toward larger structural concerns. The most logical explanation is not that Gustafsson suddenly transformed into an unstoppable offensive force for one night, but rather that the defensive scheme failed to apply the level of pressure, resistance, and tactical discipline that professional competition demands. Allowing any opponent to shoot 88% from the field is a warning sign. Allow it to continue without meaningful adjustment turns into a coaching and system-level issue that can significantly impact the outcome of a game.
And Steph White are both trending. Fever fans want her to be left behind in Portland. Stephanie White coaching is criminal. Let's just pull up the latest, bro. Let's just pull up the latest. Fire Stephanie White and Amber Cox. This, not next week. This next week, the experiment is over. It's definitely over. Cannot believe what the front office plus Stephanie White plus her coaching staff has done to once-in-a-lifetime player in Kayla Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, Boston Plus. I mean, this is...
At this stage, the Indiana Fever situation requires honest analysis without any attempt to soften the reality of what the numbers are showing. The Fever are now 4-4 and have lost 4 of their last 5 games after opening the season with a promising 3-1 record. Caitlin Clark's shooting struggles have extended across multiple games, with her field goal percentage dropping to 21% during that stretch. Defensively, the team disallowed 52 points in the paint to a first-year expansion franchise, while the offensive system continues to face many of the same questions that existed at the start of the season. Concerns regarding secondary playmaking, the utilization of pick-and-roll actions, and the balance between Clark's natural offensive strengths and the system being implemented by the coaching staff remain unresolved. Instead of showing clear signs of improvement, several of those issues appear to be becoming more pronounced. The most urgent concern, however, revolves around Clark's physical condition. If ongoing back issues are impacting her shooting mechanics, timing, or ability to generate power from her lower body, that information is highly relevant to understanding her recent performances. The pattern of reduced minutes, combined with Clark's own comments about the recurring nature of the issue and the noticeable decline in shooting efficiency, naturally raises questions that many fans are asking. While outside observers can only work with publicly available information, the situation has reached a point where supporters are looking for clear and direct communication, rather than speculation or ambiguity. Another development worth noting is the growing discussion among fans about the long-term direction of the franchise, not because dramatic conclusions are necessarily warranted after only 8 games, but because the very existence of those conversations reflects a level of concern about the team's trajectory. When debates about organizational direction begin this early in the season, it often signals a deeper frustration with results, roster usage, and overall team identity. Whether those concerns prove justified remains to be seen, but they are undeniably becoming part of the broader conversation surrounding the Fever. Ultimately, the only question that matters now is whether these issues represent a temporary slump that can be corrected through adjustments, improved execution, and better health, or whether they are symptoms of larger structural problems that require more significant changes. The schedule will not become easier, and the margin for error continues to shrink with every game. As more information becomes available, the focus will remain on the defensive breakdowns, the evolution of Clark's role within the offense, and the team's ability to respond to mounting pressure. Let us know your assessment in the comments. Are the Fever simply navigating an early season rough patch, or does a combination of the 4 record, defensive struggles, and Clark's recent shooting trend point to deeper issues that cannot be solved by rotation adjustments alone? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for the next full breakdown.